All right, so let's take a random sample of 47 JMU professors. Okay, and you find out that they have a mean of 15.22 Doctor Who t-shirts. All right, so there's our X bar. The big nerds over at Doctor Who Community know that the standard deviation for such t-shirts is 5.4. Right, so we know our population standard deviation. So, what is the 98% confidence interval for the true mean number of Doctor Who t-shirts? All right, so let's extract our important bits of information. Our sample mean is 15.22. Our population standard deviation is 5.4, and our sample size is 47. Right, the important thing here is that our sample size is larger than 31, so we can apply this. We don't need to know anything else about the population. Okay, we don't need to know if it's normal or anything. The central limit theorem applies. We can use our standard normal distribution approximation. So the 98% confidence level, what does that mean for our critical value? All right, looking back at the table we have, a critical value of z alpha over 2 of 2.326 for 98% confidence, right? So that's a piece that's going to go into our margin of error calculation. So that's the next thing we need. So our margin of error is our critical value times the standard distribution and divided by the square root of our sample size. For this data set, 98% confidence level critical value. We have 5.4 as our standard deviation, and it's going to be square root of 47, so square root of our sample size. This comes out to be 1.832. Since our mean is out to 2 decimal places, let's just round this to 2 decimal places and use 1.83. Okay, so the next thing we need is our confidence interval. All right, so our confidence interval is our sample mean, and we're going to add and subtract our margin of error. Okay, all right, so on the low end, our sample mean minus our margin of error is 15.22 minus 1.83. That gives me 13.39. That's the low end of my confidence interval. X bar plus my margin of error, 15.22 plus 1.83. That gives me 17.05. Okay, so the statement we want to make for this 98% confidence interval is we are 98% confident that the true mean number of Doctor Who t-shirts among JMU faculty is between 13.39 and 17.05. Okay. What we actually calculate is that if we did this over and over again, we would get different intervals every time, but 98% of those intervals will contain the true mean. Something else we can calculate if we have our standard deviation for the population is we can calculate what the sample size is for a given confidence level and our margin of error. Okay? If we just rearrange the equation for the margin of error to get the sample size n, it looks like this. Our sample size is equal to our critical value times the standard deviation divided by the margin of error, and then we square that number. Now, since our sample size has to be a whole number, we then round this number up. We always round up to the next integer. So if we round down, we wouldn't be guaranteed to meet that margin of error. So, for example, right, what's the minimum sample size to have a 95% confidence level margin of error in Doctor Who t-shirts? Will be 1.2 shirts, right? So we want M to be equal to 1.2, We want a 95% confidence. Our sigma is going to be the same. Now we need to find out how many people we need to be in our sample. Okay, so putting this into our reconstructed formula, our critical value for 95% confidence is 1.96. Our standard deviation was 5.4. That hasn't changed. The margin of error we want is 1.2. Okay? We multiply these two, divide by this one, then we square that whole business, and I get 77.7924, which we then round up to have a sample size of 78. Right? This is going to guarantee a margin of error of 1.2 shirts or less for 95% confidence. Okay? So again, take a look at the book, and I will see you in class.